Hello, everyone, and welcome to Basecamp Briefings powered by Summit Strategy. It is June 1st. I can't believe it's June already, and I'm excited to be here today and talk about one of my favorite topics, which is our win system and how to know if you have a win system. And then I've got some exciting news at the end. All right, so this is our topic. We're going to talk through if you have a win system and how to tell if you have one or how to tell if it's broken. I don't know what's going on with my background. Fun times. Anyways, all right. So my name is Kristen Maycumber. I am the founder and CEO of Summit Strategy. I've spent my entire career helping government contractors and professional services firms win more work by building better systems, not just chasing shiny RFPs. At Summit Strategy, we specialize in strategic business development, capture, proposal development, marketing, training, and we've supported hundreds of clients and helped them build sustainable growth engines. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about what is a win system. We're going to go through a diagnostic for each of the 5 phases of a win system. We'll talk about some common breakdowns that you'll probably recognize. And then we'll talk about where and how to start to build your own win system or refine your win system if you have one. And then, as I mentioned at the end, I will share some big news for today. All right, so like all of our Basecamp briefings, I always like to keep it real. I always try to start with a reality check. So before we jump into anything, I want to start here. Most GovCon teams and most teams in general think they may think they have a win system, but they don't really have a win system. What they may have is a business development spreadsheet from 2022, a proposal template that they've been using for the last 5 or 6 years. Maybe they have a website that doesn't really match what business development folks are actually out there selling. Maybe they have a capture process that lives in one person's head and walks out that door if that person leaves. That's not a real system. That's just chaos, and that's chaos with good intentions. And chaos doesn't really scale. It doesn't prevent burnout. It doesn't align between the various roles and the efforts that are involved in growth because, as we know, growth is a team sport, and it certainly does not help you win more often and repeatable. So, for the next 20, 30 minutes, I'm going to walk you through what a real win system looks like. I'm going to walk through the 5 peaks that every winning team has built and how to spot the cracks in yours before they cost you your next pursuit. And then, like I said, stick around till the end where I'm going to announce something that we haven't shared anywhere else yet. All right, so what is a win system? It's 3 things. It's a framework meaning that it's documented, it's shared, it's not in one person's head. It's connected, meaning BD, capture, proposals, marketing, all of those people, all of those teams, even if it's one person that wears all those different hats, all of those efforts are all talking to each other instead of running parallel efforts, parallel playbooks. And then it's repeatable, meaning when you win, you can explain why. And when you lose, you can fix it because you also know why. So that's the bar. If your growth approach doesn't meet all 3 of these things, you don't quite have a system yet. You may just have a bunch of random habits. So I want to also cover what a win system is not, because I see this is where folks get confused sometimes. It's not a 96-step process. If your team can't remember it, they can't follow it and they won't follow it. It's not a binder from a training or a webinar that's just collecting dust on a shelf or on a server. If you have a methodology that you don't actually operationalize, it's just an expensive training that you probably paid for. It's not a software platform, so it's not your AI tools, it's not whatever tools you're using or platforms. Tools don't replace systems, they're supposed to support them. And then it's not one really good proposal manager. If your win rate depends on whether Sally is having a good week, that's not a real system. That's just a hostage situation. So here's the system. It's 5 peaks, as we call it, 5 phases, whatever you want to, 5 steps, 5 pieces. So plan, position, propose, persuade, and propel. So I'm going to walk through each one. And again, for each peak, I'm going to talk through the diagnostic question that will help you tell whether yours is built or broken, and a real example of what it looks like when it's working and when it isn't. And I've also put markers in there so you can see when an RFP drops. So an RFP doesn't hit until between position and propose. And then the award notice, award win or loss, is after persuade. So you can just see kind of tying that to the procurement life cycle, how a lot of the work needs to happen before the RFP. And then there's some stuff that happens in between RFP and award. And then there's some important stuff that happens after award as well. All right, so peak one, plan. This is the base of the mountain. Your strategy lives here, and your strategy is what you're going after in terms of clients, markets, capabilities, opportunities. It's what you're going after, and it's why you're going after those things. And then on the flip side of that, it's what you're saying no to. So when this peak is solid, the rest of the system has a true direction. When it's not, every other peak is working harder than it should be to make up for the lack of a strategy. So we had a client that was an 8A firm. They were fast growing. They had great past performance. Everything looked good on paper. But they said that their BD strategy, when we asked them, what's your strategy? Oh, well, we chase anything we can win. And a lot of firms say that, we chase whatever we can win. So in this case, their pipeline had, I think, 80, 90 something opportunities in it. There was no prioritization. Every capture manager, they had two or three, was running their own play. I asked the president which three pursuits were driving their Q3 revenue, and he couldn't tell me which ones. So that's a broken plan. It's not that they didn't have ambition, they had too much ambition pointed in too many different directions. And so we sat down with them, we built their actual North Star, which was, what they're chasing, why, what they're walking away from. So their pipeline volume actually decreased in a couple of months because we removed opportunities that weren't high priority for them and weren't aligned with their North Star. But in the end, their win rate ended up doubling over a period of time because, they stopped wasting energy on the wrong work and focused on the pursuits that were really in their sweet spot. So here's the question for you. Do you have a documented BD strategy or just a revenue goal? Because, saying that we want to grow 25% is a number, it's a KPI. It is not a strategy. A real plan has three things in it: a clear North Star, so where you're going, what you're chasing, what you're walking away from. It has go, no go criteria that you actually use, that are written down, that, your team knows what and how you're making those go no go decisions by. And then it's a pursuit process that says who owns what on every opportunity. And that's it. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's three things. It can be a one-page strategy. It doesn't have to be a 40-page deck, or it doesn't have to live in someone's head. That's not a plan. And everyone should be able to recite it without looking it up. If your team doesn't know what your strategy is, you don't really have a strategy. So some quick math for you on a Monday morning, early on a Monday. 40 pursuits. Let's say you pursue 40 pursuits and you have a 20% win rate. You're going to win 8 of those. If you have 20 pursuits at a 40% win rate, that's also 8 wins. So it's the same outcome, but it's half the burnout and it's twice the focus. Most teams are running that 40 pursuit version because it feels productive. There's more volume happening, there's more action. It feels like you're moving in the right direction. But all it really is expensive and it's exhausting. It burns out your team. All right, so peak two is position. This is the peak, about being known before you're actually needed. So known in the marketplace, known by your customers. And a lot of teams skip this entirely. They wait for the RFP, then they scramble. But the buyer might have made up their mind earlier, months earlier, before the RFP. And you were either in that conversation or you were not in that conversation, and your competitors were. So the story on this one, we worked with a large federal AEC firm, so architecture, engineering, construction, and they wanted to grow their environmental practice. They had, real opportunities in the pipeline. They had strong past performance. They had a great qualified team. But anytime you would Google them, and let's face it, your buyers are Googling you, what came up on their website and in all of their thought leadership was all architecture related because that was their legacy. That was who they were before they started, repurposing and refocusing. And it was architecture on courthouses. They had done a bunch of justice work. And so the homepage of their website didn't even mention environmental work. So in that case, they had positioned themselves out of the win before their business development team ever even got a meeting with a potential customer. So we rebuilt their brand around environmental. We had new positioning, new content, new visibility, and they became visible for the work that they were actually pursuing, that they actually wanted to win. So here's the question on this one. Are you known for what you want to sell more of? Not maybe what you've sold previously and done previously. What are you trying to position for now? And are you known for that? So, real position has three things going for it. Your brand and messaging should match what your business developers are actually selling. Your buyers need to know that you exist before the RFP drops. And your marketing team and your BD team, again, if it's team of one on each or maybe one person doing both, they should be aligned on the same core pursuits. So if those three things are true, you're starting to set yourself up for a win before the work even hits the street. But if any one of those three things is off, then your business development is starting every pursuit from behind. You're not a known quantity in the room where the buying decision is happening. You're not the preferred partner. You're just another name on the bidders list, and you're probably competing on price because that's really the only lever you have left. So every buyer is Googling you, whether you want to know it or believe it or not, because they're people, they're humans, they are curious, and so they will Google you. Whether that goes into their official evaluation or not, probably not, but they are Googling you. They are reading your LinkedIn. They are seeing what your people post. And if what they find doesn't match what BD is saying in the room when they're actually having a discussion with you, you've lost a credibility battle, and credibility matters more than you think it does. And that's not just marketing's problem. That's potential revenue that you could be losing because of those invisible credibility battles. All right, peak three is propose. This is where most teams put 90% of their energy, and I get why. Propose is tactical, it's tangible, there is a deliverable with an actual deadline. You can see progress, you can check boxes, you can write documents, you can hold the finished thing in your hands. Some of the other peaks, like plan and position that we just went through, they're harder to measure. There's no submission deadline forcing the work. So teams default to where the visible progress lives. And most teams in their BD process, in their system, spend the bulk of their energy right here and propose. But the problem with putting 90% of your energy here is a proposal isn't a writing project. It's a sales argument. You're not just producing a document, you are persuading a buying decision, which often happens before the RFP and before we even get to this peak. But most teams are still writing like they're just producing a document in response to an RFP. So, what does this look like in real life? When teams write to just deliver a document instead of writing to win a buying decision. So, a few months back, we conducted a proposal audit for a new client. They brought us in to look through their stack of recent submissions. They had some wins, they had some losses, and they wanted to know what was actually driving the difference because they lost some that they thought they were well positioned for. And so when we dug in and reviewed them, we found that most of their losing proposals read like instruction manuals. matched every requirement, addressed every requirement in the proposal. Every shall statement was matched. There was a ton of technical detail and data. It was death by bullets. There were stock graphics. There was, nothing in those proposals that told the evaluator why this team was the right team. The winning ones, however, read completely different. It was like night and day. The team had spent real capture time with that customer. So they named the customer's actual concerns. They talked about political pressure, transition risk, mission critical workflows, and they had graphics that told stories, and their win themes showed up in every section. And so it's the same firm, same writers, and same SMEs in most cases, but different results. And so the losses, they produced a document, they had a deliverable, there was a proposal, but the wins made an argument, which is what a real strong winning proposal does. So here's the question on this one. Are your proposals clearly differentiated or just compliant with the RFP? A real proposed function has four things working together. A pre-RFP strategy that drives the response, not a scramble after that RFP drops. You have technical content that is written for evaluators, not for the SMEs writing it. You have visual storytelling that earns its space, not just wall-to-wall text that drowns out the message and the important message. And you use boilerplate on purpose, not on default. You're not just taking your last proposal, saving as, and changing some things. So if your proposals start at the RFP and work forward, you're producing a document. So if you start at propose and skip the previous two phases, you're just producing a document in response to an RFP that you probably found on the internet. The winning teams, however, start at the buyer, which happens in plan and propose. They get clear about what a good buyer is for them and what opportunities they can actually make a strong sales argument. And so that's what propose is about for them, not just writing proposals and writing documents. Documents, check boxes, arguments, win contracts. So if your proposal strategy starts and ends with, did we answer everything? Are we compliant? You've already lost that room. Answering the RFP is the bare minimum. It's the table stakes. It's not going to create the conditions to win. The teams that win in this market are the ones whose proposals make an argument that the evaluator can repeat back to their boss as that buying decision goes up the chain. All right, peak four is Persuade. This is a peak that most teams almost completely ignore sometimes. They spend weeks and weeks on that written proposal, and then they get shortlisted or down selected. And 3 days before the orals presentation, someone says, wait, who's presenting? What's our plan? And so that's how you might lose a contract that you already wrote your way into. Like, you've already gotten down selected. Don't lose the opportunity here, because this is where you got to close it and seal the deal. So I've coached orals teams for many, many, many years, and I've coached teams that got shortlisted on outstanding written proposals. We did everything perfect. They had a real chance to win, and then they walked into the room and tanked it because they weren't really ready. They didn't put in the hard work to practice. They had their SMEs reading verbatim from the slides that were just crammed with bullets. There was no story. There was no connection to the evaluator's mission, no sense that the team had practiced together, let alone worked together more than once. Meanwhile, the team that wrote a worse proposal but presented like they already had the contract, they can win, because evaluators in that room aren't just grading your slide deck. They're not just evaluating what you present. They're deciding if they trust you to deliver for the next 5 years or however long that program is. That's a different skill than writing, and it has to be trained, it has to be coached, and it has to be practiced. So you don't develop orals talent by hoping and just like hoping you'll show up on game day and do okay together live in front of the client. You develop it by rehearsing and practicing, and making it hard on yourselves before game day. So here's the question. Can your team confidently communicate value at orals? Not can they read the slides? Can they actually tell your story? Can they handle the curveball questions live in front of the client? and look like a team that the evaluator wants to work with. Real Persuade has four things in place. We have storytelling and clear visuals. We don't just have bullet jam decks that bore our evaluators, put our evaluators to sleep. We have real rehearsals. We are rehearsing out loud. We're rehearsing on camera, especially if it's a virtual interview. We're virtually presenting together, and we're getting someone to give us feedback along the way. We have presenters who understand the evaluator's perspective, and we're using content that is tailored to that opportunity, not recycled from your last oral presentation. So if your only prep is having the team walk through the slides a few times, you're just hoping that it goes well. And that's not the same thing as being truly ready. Evaluators don't just grade the deck, they decide if they trust you. I said that earlier. Your slides are just the backdrop. Your people are the actual product that you're selling. So you've got to train accordingly, rehearse, and practice accordingly. All right, peak five, which is Propel. This is where most teams quit. They win the contract, they pop that champagne, and then they move on because nobody ever really sits down to ask, hey, why did we win this? Or what almost killed this deal? Or what are we supposed to scale next time? Like what's working, what's not working? How do we get better? So we had a client win a $30 million contract. I think it was not last year, the year before last. It was a really big win for them. It was a really, really big win. So they had a real celebration, like they were really excited. A few months later, they were chasing a very similar opportunity, a different agency, but same kind of work. And the pursuit team on their side was completely different. They had different SMEs, they had a different approach, a different pricing strategy. And why is that? Because nobody documented what worked the first time. The second pursuit was just luck, right? The third one would be two. Propel is the peak that turns that one win into 10. It's where you build that content library that gets used. It's not the SharePoint folder that no one opens or no one can find. It's where you train your next round of SMEs. It's where you debrief honestly on what almost killed that win and what almost let you lose. So if you skip this peak, every pursuit feels like the first one. And we're just in Groundhog Day every day, over and over again. So here's the question on this one. Are you scaling what works or starting over every time? Real Propel has five things going for it. You have win-loss reviews that capture actionable insights, not just like, oh, good job, team, let's do it again. Training on your BD and proposal process, especially for SMEs who often get pulled into proposal efforts last minute. And let's face it, they don't always have the skills, the knowledge, or the understanding of the BD process. So let's train them. Let's give them the skills and knowledge and how to. You have continuous refinement of your pipeline and of your pursuit strategy. Your strategy should not be a solidified thing that's stale and never changes and never adapts. We should constantly be realigning, refreshing, especially in today's market where things change very quickly, sometimes overnight. You should have a content library and a template system that's actually used. And you should be developing internal talent or hiring for the right roles and not just filling seats, putting butts in seats, making sure that you have the right leaders and right people in your business development system. So if you can't tell me in writing why you won your last big contract and how you're going to do it again, you just got lucky and you're going to need to get lucky over and over again. So if you can't repeat it, you didn't really win it. And again, you got lucky, and luck is not a strategy, just like hope is not a strategy. It may have been a great, awesome coincidence, but it's still just a coincidence. And we have to put the right system in place so that it's repeatable. All right, so after working with 250 plus GovCon clients, I can tell you exactly where most teams break, and it's not proposals, it's not even really capture. It's the first part, it's the plan. And I know that it sounds basic, which is exactly why everyone skips it. Most firms tell you that they have a plan, they will point to their 5-year vision deck. They'll tell you their revenue targets, their growth goals from their last leadership offsite. They'll show you their pipeline tracker. But what they really have is just a wish list, and a wish list that may be formatted into an Excel document, a slide deck, a business plan, a CRM, whatever you want to put it in. It's still just a wish list. So, to make this tangible, a real plan has to answer 4 questions out loud on demand from anyone on your team. And that's the key word. Like, everyone on your team has to know your plan and has to be able to recite it, which means it doesn't have to be this big, extensive document. It just has to answer 4 simple questions. One, what are we actually chasing? By agency, by contract type, by size, not just federal work, not just federal IT work or cybersecurity work. What specifically are we chasing and why? Number 2 is why. Why those? What is the strategic logic behind making those the right pursuits and not the 80 others that we could be chasing? Third is, what are we walking away from, even when it shows up in our inbox and looks really attractive, looks really shiny? We see it on SAM. We see all of our competitors talking about pursuing this, new GWAC that just came out. Like, no, let's walk away from things that are not on our strategic plan. Or let's revise our strategic plan to include those things if they really are of strategic importance. And then fourth is, who is owning and moving each priority client and each priority pursuit forward? What's the next action on each one? So again, if your team cannot answer those 4 out loud, you don't have a plan. And then here's why, something to think about. Here's why this peak costs you the most. When your plan is weak, position has no anchor. Your marketing tries to be everything to everyone. Propose has no compass. Every proposal feels like starting from scratch. Persuade has no through line. Your orals team can't tell a coherent story because there isn't one. And then Propel has nothing to scale because you don't know what you're trying to repeat. So if you fix plan and if you really focus your effort there, everything else gets dramatically easier. If you skip it, you're going to spend the next 10 years working harder than you really have to. So this is the foundation, this is the work, the hard stuff. This is where most firms, even big ones, even successful ones, are quietly running on momentum instead of strategy. And again, hope is not a strategy. All right. So, what does a real win system look like in practice? Because, again, to be clear, this is not a giant document that sits on a shelf. It isn't a 4-hour, kickoff slide deck that you open once. It's not a binder. A real win system looks like a team that can answer 5 key questions out loud in under a minute each. So again, what are we chasing? Why? Are we known for it? Are we ready to write to it? Are we ready to present it? And are we capturing what we learn? It looks like a 1-page strategy that your BD lead, your marketing lead, your capture manager, your proposal manager can all recite from memory. Not because they memorized a document, but because they helped build it and they are living it. It also looks like Monday meetings where BD doesn't have to explain to marketing what's in the pipeline because everyone already knows. Where your proposal team doesn't have to ask capture what the win themes are supposed to be because everyone already knows. Where leadership doesn't have to ask 3 different people for 3 different versions of the same number because everyone already knows. So that's the bar. If your team has to dig through SharePoint to find what they're supposed to do, you don't have a system, you just have a bunch of documents. And then here's the part that most firms skip. The system has to live somewhere. It has to be written down, it has to be accessible, and it has to be taught. I hear this one a lot from a lot of people, a lot of firms. We've been winning fine without a playbook. Sure, because you've been small, or because you've had one really good capture manager who knows where everybody is buried, or because your founder is still involved in every pursuit. That works up until a point. That works until you hire three new BD people in a quarter, or your senior capture manager retires, or your leadership changes, or you just grow and evolve. Suddenly, your team is moving a million miles a minute. They're doing things their own way, and your win rate and your process starts to look like a roulette wheel. Rogue doesn't scale, Scrappy doesn't win forever, and at some point, the work has to live outside of one person's head or growth becomes the thing that breaks you. So this is why it's so important to write it down. And of course, you don't, build a win system all at once. We all know how that would go. You build a win system one peak at a time. So pick the peak that is costing you the most right now. And for most of you, that's probably plan or position. Those are kind of the first two. They're the sometimes the unsexy work. The hard work, and sometimes we just skip right over this because again we jump right to propose because it's tangible. So fix one peak, run a real process, document what you do as you do it, get a win under your belt with that process so your team knows and feels what good looks like. And then start to connect it. So if you fixed position, tie it to plan in front of it. Tie it to propose behind it. Now you've got three peaks talking to each other instead of running parallel. Then you do the next one and the next. And in 6 months or so, you've built a real system. In 12 months, you're running without, you really having to push it. That's why and how every win system that we've built with a client has actually come together. Nobody did it in a weekend offsite. It's not that easy. Nobody did it just from building a binder. You build it in the work, one pursuit at a time, one peak at a time. All right. So for everything I just walked through, if it made you want to know exactly where your team scores, we do have a self audit. It's free on our website. It's a checklist that you can download. It walks through those 5 peaks. It gives you 25 questions, so it goes into more detail than I did today. It takes about 10 minutes. You'll walk out with your score and a clear sense of where to start. That'll help you figure out what peak to focus on first. So you can hit that QR code, and it'll take you straight. You have to fill out your contact information to download it, and then you will get the download. All right. So before you go anywhere, I promised you some big news, and it is now time. So earlier this year, we launched the Summit Win Academy. It is our online, on-demand training program that is built around the exact system that I just walked you through. So we just spent 30 minutes walking through the Win system, and our on-demand training system, our training program is 4+ hours of detail. And so it goes through plan, position, propose, persuade, and propel that we just went through. It's not a recycled BD process playbook from the 90s. It's not a series of disconnected webinars that you have to then like piece all the information together and figure out how it applies to you. It is all built in an organized fashion. And it's the system that we use for our clients and that we install with our clients, and the system we would teach our own kids if they were getting into GovCon tomorrow. So it's self-paced. It is built for BD capture, proposal, and marketing teams. And every person that finishes it gets a Trailblazer certified credential that you can put on your resume, on your LinkedIn, share it proudly. So the big news today is June 1, which is crazy. It's my birthday month. It's June, it's summer, and summer's here. So we are opening the Summit Win Academy at summer school pricing. So normally the pricing is $4,888, so just under $5,000. But through August 31st, we are giving you a special deal that is 61% off our flagship training program price. So instead of almost 5,000, you pay 1,888, so just under 2 grand. And so why summer school? Why the summer? I think it's for a few key reasons. One, it's my birthday month, and so we like to give things away for my birthday, which is fun. Second, summer is the window. So federal Q4 doesn't really hit until late July. Q1 of the next fiscal year starts in October. So you've got real runway right now to train your team before the pursuit volume gets crazy, before it spikes, and everything is just going off the rails. Um, Also, most teams use summer to slow down. We want you to use it to level up. So get your BD, get your capture, your proposal folks, go through the academy now and walk into fall with a team that knows the system, is speaking the same playbook, and working from the same process. And then the math is the math. So at 1,888, the academy is cheaper than most conference tickets. And your team gets a credential, not just a shitty swag bag. So the pricing is going to run through August 31st. Then it returns to 4,888 on September 1. There's going to be no extension. There's no, oh, I'll do it next quarter. Today through August 31st. So hit that QR code in the top left and it'll take you straight to the page. It should already have the discount code applied. So hit that QR code. The QR code is here on this slide on the bottom right while I talk to this slide. So if you're wondering who the Academy is for, if you're not familiar with it, if you haven't looked at it yet, it is for the BD people who got handed a pipeline and a quota with no real playbook on how to build one. It's for the capture managers who came up through proposals and were told, go capture, with no formal training on what that actually means. It's for the proposal managers running on instinct because they've been doing this for a decade and no one ever really taught them a system. It's for the marketing directors who are trying to do real GovCon positioning, but everything you can find online is built for commercial brands. It's for the new hires who need to ramp up fast without shadowing someone for 6 months. And it's for the firm owners and leaders who are tired of their growth depending entirely on one or two key people knowing how everything works. That is who the Academy is built for. And then you get that Trailblazer certified credential, and that matters because the people doing this work, so your BD, your capture manager, your proposal team, most of them have never really been trained on a system. They've been trained on task. They, know how to write that section. They know how to run the kickoff. They know how to update the pipeline, but not how it all connects together. And so the credential is for your team. It's proof that they've learned the real system, not just done the job. And it's something that they own throughout their career that says that they've done the work to think about this discipline more seriously than most people in our industry do. And that's, I think, worth something to them and to you as an organization. So here's what your team gets as part of the Win Academy. You get 46 on-demand video lessons. So 46 is a lot. It's a ton of content. It's over 4 hours of content if you just sit there straight through and watch it. But it's on demand. It's bite-sized lessons that your team can work through on your own schedule. There's no live sessions that you have to show up for. There's no travel. There's no blocking the week for training. And every lesson comes with downloadable checklists, tools, and templates. And these are the things that your team will actually be able to use and pull up the next time you're in capture call or starting a proposal. You get the Trailblazer certified credential that I just walked through. You get that as soon as you finish. And then here's the part that I think is really important. You get lifetime access, including, new content as we added. I'm working on some new modules now. So once you're in, you're in. So especially now you pay $1,888 for lifetime access. You're going to get access to my brain, which is a scary thing, as I add new content and new tools and new templates for the life of it. You'll never have to upgrade. You don't have to pay a premium fee. You don't have to upgrade, like none of that. You're going to get everything that we add for the lifetime that this exists. So before we wrap, if you take one thing from the last few minutes, think about the firms that are winning consistently in this market. They do have a system, and they have a system that ties their entire team together. The ones that struggle on the flip side have a bunch of really smart people running their own playbooks and hoping it adds up at the end of the year. It rarely does. Or if it does, one year, again, you got to get lucky the next year, and we all know how that goes. So the Summit Win system is what we've built to fix that. It's 5 peaks, it's one system, and it works in real life. It's not on a shelf, it's not in a binder, it's not on a kickoff slide. So it's meant for the real world. It's what has worked in the real world. It's built on my entire 23-year career doing this at a very tactical, real, tangible level for organizations of all sizes. So it is access to what I think works in the real world. So if everything I walked you through made you think, hey, we need to talk about this with our team, start that conversation today while it's fresh, before the next pursuit lands and before the urgency just disappears. So if your team is starting to build the system on their own, and you're ready to start building the system on your own and figure out how to do that and how to connect all these pieces and parts for your company, that Summit Win Academy is open at summer school pricing right now. The code is active. That QR code in the top left is active. So again, $1,888 through August 31st. That is a 61%, I think, discount. So go grab it. And then, of course, if you want to talk about something bigger, like building the system into your firm with our help, you can book time with me directly. I'll give you my contact information on the next slide. And then if you're not sure where you stand on any of this, again, you have that free audit on our website that'll take, 5-10 minutes to walk through and give you a real read on where your team is strong and where it may be having some issues. So whatever level of engagement makes sense for where you are right now, we do have a path forward. So thank you for being here. Sorry for my scratchy voice. I was sick last week and still recovering. And I hope, everyone has a good June. I hope everyone signs up for the Win Academy and loves it. We already have lots of people going through it, and I've got some great feedback so far, which is really informing the next round of content that I put up there. And then I will check the LinkedIn for comments and questions and address those here shortly. So again, if you found this useful, share it with your BD team, share it with the capture manager, the proposal person that needs to hear it, as many people as possible. And here's my contact information. And again, thank you for joining. And I hope everyone has a great month, a great week, great summer, and I'll see you in the Win Academy.